You were valuable to the operation precisely because you were good at your job, and your job was producing the clean paper trail that the operation required. The professionalism was the utility. The utility was the reason you were hired. Monday morning arrives. You go to work. This is the decision you make at approximately 4 a.m., when the available options have been mapped against each other, with the full insomniac attention of a person who has been awake since 2 a.m. and who has run every calculation available to him. You go to work because not going to work communicates awareness, and awareness is the instrument that changes your status in a situation whose danger is calibrated to your status. You go to work and you behave like the person you have been for 7 months, which is a professional and competent logistics manager who does his job well and asks the questions his job requires and does not ask the questions his job does not require. You perform this person with a precision that the person you were 6 months ago would not have recognized as performance. At 10 a.m., you email your cousin from your personal phone in the bathroom. Not about this. You do not write about this on any device you don't control in any message that can be read. You tell him you need to talk. He says, "Sure, call me tonight." You say in person. He says, "Okay." You meet him at a cafe in a neighborhood that is not your neighborhood at 7 p.m. You sit outside because outside is harder to manage for audio surveillance than inside. A fact you know because you have been thinking about things like this since Saturday evening in the parking structure. You tell him what you found. Not everything. The everything is still something you are managing in your own processing. Enough. The company, the serial numbers, the refrigerated truck, the inventory pattern, the shape of the incomplete picture. He listens. He is quiet for a long time. He says, "Do you have copies of anything?" You think about this. You think about the web interface and the data, and whether you took screenshots or exported anything, and you think about what having copies means in 2 directions simultaneously, as evidence of what you found and as evidence of what you had access to. You say, "Not yet." He says, "Don't. Not from any system connected to them." If you copied anything from their system, you've taken their data, and that is a different problem from the one you already have. He is right. You know he is right. You also know that the data is accessible to you through the web interface until someone changes your credentials, and that the window of accessibility is the window before the situation changes. And the situation will change when Rodrigo or someone above Rodrigo decides your attention to detail has become a different kind of attention to detail than the kind that is valued. Your cousin says you need a lawyer, not a general lawyer, someone who specifically handles this kind of situation. He says, there is a process for people who are inside this kind of situation without choosing to be inside it. It's called cooperation, and it has a specific legal framework, and the legal framework protects you if you access it correctly and before they access you. You say, cooperation. He says, I know what it sounds like. I'm telling you what the options are. You sit with the options. The options are what they are in a situation with no good choices. You can continue working and continue producing the documentation and continue being the instrument of the clean paper trail until either the operation is raided and your name is on 7 months of documents that a federal prosecutor can use, or the operation detects your awareness and manages the detection in the way this category of situation is managed. You can leave quietly and hope the leaving is attributed to normal employee turnover and not to the question you asked at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Or you are talking to a lawyer this week, and the lawyer is talking to whoever the lawyer talks to, and the process produces whatever the process produces. You think about Rodrigo clearing the discrepancy flag and saying good catch. You think about the refrigerated truck. You think about the 6 years and the degree and the 3 years of searching and the 18,000 pesos arriving on time without exception. You think about the word inadvertently and what it is worth and what it costs, and whether it is worth what it costs in the specific legal landscape that was reorganized by a February 2025 executive order that turned the organizations running through the warehouse in Taque Paque from criminal enterprises into foreign terrorist organizations, and turned the paperwork you've been managing from logistics documentation into material support documentation. Some 175,000 people now actively work for Mexico's smuggling cartels. According to estimates, that would make them the country's 5th largest private employer, ABC 7 Chicago. Not all of them know. Some portion of that 175,000 are people whose job descriptions read like logistics manager and whose salary arrives on time and whose manager says good catch when they find the discrepancy and who go home and make dinner and think about something else. Entirely until the Saturday afternoon when the football is on and the cousin mentions the news story, and the connection lands with the specific weight of a thing that was always there and has just now arrived at the part of your awareness where you can see it fully. You are one of those people. You were one of those people. The past tense is operative now. The Saturday has happened. The 2 a.m. has happened. The Monday morning performance has happened. You cannot be the person who didn't know, because the not knowing has ended. What you are now is a person who knows and who is deciding what to do with the knowing. Tuesday morning you call a number your cousin found. A lawyer in Guadalajara who handles exactly the intersection of inadvertent involvement and the cooperation framework and the specific legal terrain of a person whose name is on 7 months of documentation for a company that the investigation will eventually reach regardless of what you do, because organized crime in Mexico has entrenched itself so deeply that criminal activity cost the Mexican economy the equivalent of 18% of the country's GDP in 2024. Vision of humanity. That GDP is made of warehouses like yours, front companies like the agricultural equipment distributor in Tlaquepaque, logistics managers like you who were hired legitimately and paid legitimately, and who performed their function with professional competence, and who are distributed across the Mexican economy in numbers large enough to constitute a fifth major employer and small enough that each one of them believes, for as long as the believing is possible, that the company they work for is the company it says it is. The believing ends differently for each of them. For you, it ended on a Tuesday afternoon with a serial number discrepancy that you flagged in the system the way your training told you to flag discrepancies. You were doing your job. Your job was the problem. The lawyer answers. You tell her the situation. She listens with the specific professional attention of someone who has heard this before and who is already running the framework before you finish the sentence. She says, "Don't go back to the warehouse." She says, "Not today, not tomorrow, not while we establish the terms." She says, "I need you to write down everything you remember from memory, not from any company system, from your own memory, dates, shipment patterns, anything that is in your head and not in their documentation." She says, "This is not a confession, it's a recollection, and the distinction matters." You pull over in a street in Guadalajara with your phone pressed to your ear and a lawyer telling you to write down what you remember, and you sit with the specific quality of a Tuesday morning that contains the end of a job that you held for 7 months and the beginning of a process that will take considerably longer than that. You say, "Okay." You say, "I'll write it down." You open the Notes app on your phone. You start with the serial numbers. You move to the refrigerated truck. You move through 7 months of memory that your brain has been accumulating without knowing it was evidence. The degree took 6 years. The job took 7 months. The company was the company. You were the logistics manager. The normalization of cartel activity moves people from less serious to more serious activities. Labor informality rates present a unique opportunity for cartels to make inroads. The stark discrepancy in wages between the formal and informal sectors has a significant impact. Al Jazeera, the cartel's most effective recruitment, is not the dramatic kind, not the ranch in Tuchitlan and the fake job posting and the gate with the rifles. The most effective recruitment is the job board posting that looks like any other job board posting, the employment contract that looks like any other employment contract, the manager who says good catch and values your attention to detail and pays your salary on time for 7 months, while your professionalism builds the paper trail that the operation requires. The most effective recruitment is the one you don't know is recruitment until the Saturday afternoon when the football is on and your cousin mentions the news. Write that down too. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. The cartel front company economy employs hundreds of thousands of ordinary Mexicans who have no idea what they're working for, and the FTO designation has made the inadvertent employee's legal exposure significantly worse. Next week, we're going inside what actually happens to people who find themselves in this situation and what the cooperation framework looks like from the inside. Subscribe. You don't want to miss it.